If you're looking for some straight-up marketing advice that's super chilled and also a bit of a laugh, then grab yourself a drink and get ready for Marketing and Margaritas, a podcast that makes marketing entertaining. Brought to you by Rebel Nation, direct from regional Queensland.
Hello and welcome to Marketing and Margaritas. Today we are joined by Grundy from Mackay Isaac Tourism. Sorry, I almost put Whitsunday in there. Mackay Isaac Tourism. And we're talking how tourism marketing is everyone's business. Thanks for joining us, Al.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for being here.
And thanks for having me here. You know, just 1 month into my journey for being a Mackay Isaac Tourism leader, and I'm realising that we're actually sitting on a golden mine of opportunity here in the Mackay and the Isaac area. And what we don't realise at this stage is that opportunity is there for all of us in the community. And I often think of tourism a bit like it's this little bit of cream that can support the rest of the economic drivers of the community. And what I want to do is froth it up and make everybody realise that it's actually a bit bigger piece of cream.
Right.
And that
It's a big contributor. It can be a really big contributor.
Absolutely. And
to
it
every
doesn't
industry.
only create jobs, and it creates livability.
Yes.
And one of the really cool things is you've got visiting family and friends coming. It makes you proud because you've got stuff to show off.
Yes.
But it's great for talent retention and stuff as well, you know, so for those kids that want to go away for uni or anything like that, not that there's anything wrong with that, but for those ones who do potentially want to stay closer to home, having a place that is thriving and has stuff happening, etc., that's what they want, you know, so yeah, I 100% agree. So we've jumped straight in, but that is basically where we wanted to get to, so thanks, Al. As far as mine of opportunity, well, that's why we wanted to get you in early as well, because I think, you know, Mackay Isaac Tourism is like, you know, it's our tourism body, and it's one of those things that I think a lot of people don't really understand what it is that you guys do and how tourism does affect our community, no matter whether you have a business or whether you live here. I see tourism very much as actually a part of our lives in many aspects, not just for people to come visit sort of thing. Like, I think that's just one side of tourism. So we wanted to get into that, but also tourism marketing specifically.
Yeah.
Obviously, this podcast is all about marketing, and tourism is its own beast when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And you know what? I think as a tourism destination, it's really easy just to go fishing in a bucket, but you won't catch much. But there's a whole ocean out there, which is our global marketplace where we go to attract tourism dollars. And, you know, Mackay at this point in time, it's a destination that, you know, the domestic market knows about. And obviously we get a lot of grey nomads with their caravans and that. And the thing about Mackay is we're the capital of events, so we're really good at it. But what we haven't got at this stage is the leisure tourism market.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in my past life in the Whitsundays, I was a partner in a sailing company, and over 22 years we grew that business from carrying 3,000 guests a year to over 20,000 guests a year.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it was huge. But what we did was I realised very early in the piece that if you just fish in the bucket, you're not going to catch many fish. So
you need to broadden those horizons.
So
and that's where marketing comes into it, man.
Absolutely. Early 2000, I started to venture overseas and we were getting a lot of backpackers coming through. So I started by going to adventure expos in London and promoting our products, and also taking other products with me that were different to my business that complemented it. So I
so it's full suite of experiences, not just this one thing.
Early Beach and the Whitsundays, and say, by the way, when you're coming over to Oz for your gap year, you've got to stop in at the Whitsundays because there's all this awesome stuff to do.
Because when you go somewhere, like, you have to think outside the box. When you, as yourself, go somewhere to do, you know, visit family or go on a holiday, you don't just do one thing when you go there. Like, you eat and you
want to make good use of that time,
Yeah.
especially like Australia. We're so flippin' far away from everybody else. So if they're going to come all of this way, obviously, you know, they're going to go to many places in Australia, but if they're going to come here, to stay for a certain period of time. Like, you don't just go something for one thing.
Yeah.
You sort of want to have all those different experiences and tick them off your list.
And I think that's what a lot of people look at those other experiences as competitors for that person's time, not packaging it. You know,
I can
going on a yacht trip or a boat trip or a fishing trip compared to going to on a gallery tour or a museum.
Yeah, they're not competing. If they collaborate, they're going to get further together, which is the case with so many businesses.
Yeah, and when it comes to marketing, what I quickly learnt was that there's actually really formal distribution channels and processes that you follow. So it's not only, initially I was just going direct to consumer, and then I learnt over time that, hey, there's these inbound tour operators in Australia, there's wholesalers and the resellers, the travel agent network, and plus we've got this amazing support through Tourism Events Queensland and Tourism Australia, and then it comes down to your regional tourism organisation. And so I quickly learnt that there's many layers, but if you work those layers, they will assist you get to your goal.
And tapping into those resources that are there rather than just going on your own all the time.
Yes.
And now you're on the other side of the fence. You are that resource for people.
It's very true. But I recall, as I said, initially going over doing adventure expos, and then Tourism Events Queensland arranging structured programs where 20 operators from Queensland would go and hit Europe. And we would do 7 countries in 7 days. So, and like we'd arrive in Germany and we'd be in Munich and we'd start at 6 o'clock in the evening and work till 11 o'clock at night, and we'd train 100 travel agents on the experiences, and it was like speed dating, and each of the 20 operators would have their table. But those travel agents would learn about the product, and that builds confidence. And as they build confidence, they're confident to sell the product. And so what it means is, rather than me having a product here and I'm waiting till the last minute to get bookings, I'm getting bookings months in advance direct from Europe. And I've got certainty that I know I'm going to get that departure away or that tour away, or my occupancy levels are going to be strong, and I can guarantee departures.
Gives
and that's
you more
a really
certainty.
important thing. Absolutely.
Working smarter, not harder. I love it.
Well, and that stability as well. I mean, not just for tourism, that's for any kind of business, is to have your pipeline healthy and working for you rather than always be looking for where the next sale and stuff is.
Yeah, correct. And what happens is, over time you build those relationships, but as you become smarter, you also seek new markets. And you realise that I just don't want to have all my eggs in that basket, and that's really important.
Diversifying into other sectors as well.
Yeah, and one of the things I did was to follow, particularly because we were still focused in the youth market, was to look at where's the next destination where Australia's doing a reciprocal arrangement for a working holiday visa program. You're right. So then we'd say, I looked about, I forget what it was, 15 years ago or something, we were doing a deal with South Korea, for working holiday visas. So that was my next destination, was going into Seoul, working with the wholesalers, producing our collateral, translated into their language. And then before you know it, we had some South Korean backpackers as well. So it's about looking at those market opportunities.
And making it happen, man. Going after it, looking outside the box. That's awesome.
So clearly you have about 2 decades of experience in actual tourism in a past life. Then I believe you were saying you were previously a counsellor at Whitsunday Council. And now in your role, how do you feel that all pieces together with what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, the really interesting thing is I sold out of the partnership in 2019, and I had been on the board of Tourism Whitsundays for about 10 years, and I was chair of Tourism Whitsundays for 3.5 years, immediately through the period before and after Cyclone Debbie. So that taught me...
That would have been a hard period.
Yeah, it was tough. But what it taught me about was how critical the partnerships were with our federal government, our state government, and the bureaucrats, because ultimately... It's ironic, but Cyclone Debbie actually put the Whitsundays further on the map, because suddenly people came in and said, how can we help? And we were able to say, did you know the tourism industry is generating this much money? And many of the politicians weren't aware. So then they said, all right, we need to help you rebuild. And we got these grants.
Because that's an economic driver for Queensland then.
And funnily enough, the CEO then of Tourism Whitsundays and the mayor we were all working together on this recovery group.
Yeah.
So we worked on a number of projects together, and that then
Just
led
made you
me,
stronger.
Yeah, and then I was working with Andrew Wilcox, who's now our member for Dawson. He was the mayor, and he suggested that maybe I should have a go at becoming a councillor, which I did and was successful in 2020. So I've had a couple of years in council, and then this opportunity presented down here. So now I've been a tourism operator, I've been on boards with tourism industry, I've had a go in local government, so now I understand what boxes to tick there, how to work.
Yep, we feel you. We
Talk
know.
the talk.
Yep.
And now,
Does help.
and now it's the other side of the ledger, so hopefully I can build the bits of the puzzle and we can build these partnerships, because our success will grow by us getting strong partnerships, and those strong partnerships with the local mayor and the councillors, as well as the departments within council, plus the likes of national parks, marine parks.
All those stakeholders.
All the stakeholders, because it's through partnerships that we can move forward, you know. And I think there's a really interesting project that Mackay's got going at the moment up at Finch Hatton, where they're looking at this mountain trail
strategy.
The strategy. And, you know, the initial piece of the puzzle, council's sorted by buying up some land, which is cool, you know, that's going to get the first 16 kilometres of trails built. But then the next stage is moving into the national park. So these
So they then need to come on board as well
the
as part of it.
relationships there. And I think one of the really important things that tourism can do is we can help our national parks, and we can actually protect our national parks.
All in the one thing. Yeah, 100%.
Rather than lock the gate, the tourism industry will become the eyes and the ears on our parks.
They can be the gatekeepers, man, instead of being the ones that shut out. Yeah, I agree with that.
And stewards and advocates for our parks. And you know what? If we're in that park every day as commercial tourism people who are trained, we'll notice something's changing there.
Yeah.
And what is it? Or is it a pest? Or is there a bit of disease happening in the forest? And we can report it.
Yeah.
And we
You
can
can be
daily
their
monitor
watchdog
it.
instead.
So-
And again, there's that collaboration and
so
stuff.
I see the future that tourism's not only providing jobs and being an economic driver, we're actually going to be the eyes on our parks and our nature, because we've got the resources. We're in there, and honestly, if you're in tourism, you care about what you're doing.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like, you know, going up for a mountain bike trail in a national park is a traditional ecotourism adventure that you would do. But the people that would use that area are doing it because they love it and it's beautiful and enjoying it and, you know, want to explore the area and see more things like that. So it's only opening and educating people's minds.
That's right.
Rather
With
than
the
keeping
correct
people out.
interpretive information.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
you need
really
want to protect
important.
that legacy and protect what's there.
Yeah.
But you don't want to shut it off from people either.
Yeah.
Like, it's just doing it in a way that works for both of those goals.
Yeah.
There's so many stakeholders though, that's a tricky line to
It
toe.
is, but you know, we've got to flip it on the head if we want to develop tourism opportunity, because if we seek investors or we've got somebody wanting to build something or develop a tourism experience, we don't want to get halfway down the path before they hit the stop sign or the speed bump that's going to stop them. Do you know what I mean? And I think if we bring the partnerships together and we talk about it and identify opportunities together, then we can say to people, hey, this is an opportunity. And we're already 3/4 of the way down the road, and we can bring the investors in, or the mum and dads who own the properties or want to invest, and we're already 3/4 of the way down the path.
And use more problem solving than roadblocks.
Rather than us.
100%, because that's what can happen too.
Yeah.
Is that if you don't have everyone kind of on board and have that buy-in from the start,
That's right.
it's so easy to encounter those things that will just completely derail it, and then all that time and effort and that opportunity gets wasted.
That's right. And we need to work within legislative frameworks at higher levels with the state and sometimes the federal government. So removing the barriers to success will help us reach those goals and grow the
You get
tourism
further together
sector.
now. So you're obviously really passionate about tourism. Can I ask what first got you into the tourism? Like, what got you into the sailing company back in the day?
Wow. What a question. As a young person, before I had this beautiful silver coloured hair, as a young person, I backpacked up the Queensland coast. And interestingly enough, we'd bypassed Airlie and gone to Cairns, and I was with a mate. We were booked in for about two weeks up in Cairns. And after the first few days, I don't know, we'd done stuff and I was like, oh, what's next? And I went to the hostel tour desk and said, look, I'm looking for something else to do. And they said, why don't you hop on the Greyhound bus and head down to Airlie and do a 3-day, 2-night sailing
So
tour.
their tourism people sent you out of their area.
That's what they do. Cairns and Airlie used to work together with the tour desks.
Right.
Yeah, and the same with Fraser Island. It was a route, a trodden path. So I came back to Airlie and did this 3-day, 2-night sailing tour and went, oh, this place is awesome. And what really blew me away then, the fringing coral reefs around the islands were just spectacular. And I remember diving off of Hook Passage and going, oh my God, this coral is amazing. And the fringing corals were quite different to the mid-shelf and outer shelf corals, which are more big and dynamic.
Yeah.
The inshore reefs were, I don't know, it just blew me away. It was so beautiful. And then I was in Melbourne working in the corporate world and a close friend passed away and I thought, I need a break. I'm going to the Whitsundays. Sailing by then was my hobby.
Yeah.
And before I know it,
You've got a
I'm
sailing
living
business.
in the Whitsundays and I've bought in with a share within a business that was a sailing company and we grew over 22 years. And
That's fantastic. That's so cool.
it's mind-blowing, you know. I met my wife there. She was a backpacker managing a hostel and, you know, and that's a really interesting thing as well. The tourism industry creates these blended, you know. And
The people you meet when you travel. Like,
oh, yeah. And we are a really welcoming industry. We're fun.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't matter what age, it's fun. But we're welcoming and we welcome people from all over the world, you know, because we want to show off what we've got, but also send those people away having had a mind-blowing experience, but also a way to be advocates. And that's what we can do for us here in Mackay, to go away and say, I saw that platypus, it's amazing. We need to make sure we look after the environment where these platypus live, as an example. Do you know what I mean? The same out on the reef. I saw these amazing fish, I saw these corals. What can I do to help, you know, sustain it? And I think tourism has a really important message that we can help educate. And as I said, not only be an economic driver, but a social driver because we help with functionality and livability, and then an environmental driver where we
And it has to be,
educate and that. And you know what? If there's an economic return, so I can make some dollars out of this and I can make a social return out of it, the environment's going to benefit.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
tourism can do so much more for our communities. That's what I feel and believe.
And it has to be, man, because like I was just listening to something the other day and they were saying about how they're actually looking at, they want to put the Great Barrier Reef on the endangered list.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it just, the perception that it can throw out is that, you know, people are there and we destroy things and all that sort of stuff. But it's like, well, what if it doesn't have to be like that? Like, how can we actually be the custodians of those nature experiences as opposed to their destroyers?
Yeah, and
you know
you know
what I mean?
what? And that's part of the story I was saying before. With the environment, sometimes if we just sit on our hands now and just let nature take its course, it's not the right action.
No.
So man is intelligent enough now to work with nature. And look, if you think about it, if we take a simple view on a garden, if we don't nurture that garden by pulling the weeds out and watering it and
maintaining
maintaining
pruning.
it,
Yep.
you know, the garden won't be so beautiful, right?
Weeds, disease,
and that's
damage.
right.
Yeah.
And
Bugs, that's it, right?
so that's a simplistic view on the world.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the reef, that's the same.
Yeah.
And it's the same as our parks and gardens. We manage them. And, you know, man's intervention is not always bad.
No, we can
You know,
do
we
good.
have
We're smart enough now, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well,
and
we
we're
need
doing,
to do good. I think that's just the thing. I just think that it needs to be that we're
and, you know, around
benefiting, we're helping.
Around the reef at the moment, we're doing such cool stuff, you know, like only in the last few weeks the coral spawning's happened.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough last year to be part of that program, and you're sitting there and the scientists are saying the coral's going to spawn shortly, and you're sitting there in a little boat watching, waiting, and suddenly the sea comes alive and these little eggs pop up to the surface, millions of them.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
And then you get buckets and you scoop the eggs up and you take it into bigger tanks, and then after a week we've got larvae, which is the beginning of the new corals, and then we take these 5 metre tanks and tow them to destinations where the coral's not doing so well.
Needs regenerating.
And put
that new life
put
in
a hose on the bottom of the tank and open the valve and put all the little larvae on the spots where we want to grow the coral.
Yeah.
So there's these exciting projects that are happening, right now, and this is about intervention, but it's also about regenerating the reef.
Yeah.
So
That's what I mean. We can be part of the solution.
yeah, well, we are part of it, and as I said, we're pretty good farmers. We can grow stuff from seeds, and now it's a bit like this is like IVF for the reef. This is cool.
That's a good analogy. Good timing.
Love it. Okay, so wanted to have a chat about our, not just our local tourism businesses, but tourism businesses in general. What are some of the key challenges that you think they're facing at the moment with their marketing? We're post-COVID, which again is a bit of a misnomer. Like COVID is a part of our lives now. It's not like it's not post-COVID. It's like post-lockdown.
Yeah, it's not like it's gone and we're back to where we were pre-2020.
Yeah.
And so, for those businesses and stuff, like some businesses folded, some were able to get through, etc., and new ones are coming up again. For those tourism businesses, what do you think they're those challenges for them in marketing right now?
The marketing, it's a really interesting point in time with where we're positioned, and one of the things about us as a destination is that we're still pretty much predominantly domestic tourism at the moment for the Mackay Isaac area. So I don't know that we'll be too impacted by the internationals, but what we may be impacted by is the outbound tourism. So currently with our 400 to 500k drive market, say, where we've got people from Townsville that might come here and have some time with us, or even from Rocky head up this way to have a tourism experience. If they're looking at other opportunities like Bali and those where you can get these deals, that's a risk for us, because if I do open up the international borders fully, we're predominantly a Western market destination for international visitation, where the people would come from the UK, Western Europe, North Americas.
Yeah.
And that's long haul, right?
Yeah.
So if we, lose our domestic market, because many more of them that may have holidayed here in the last couple of years head back off to the traditional locations like Bali, and the emerging locations around Vietnam and those areas, that's still relatively short haul.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it's easy for Aussies to head off there and do that. And if we don't get the backfill from our long haul internationals, that's one thing I see as a challenge. Outside of the marketing realm, what I really see as our challenges, and the challenges for all of us, is the staffing.
Yeah.
It's real. Affordable accommodation in our locations is real, because typically at this point in time, the tourism industry is not a high wage payer. You can work your way up into some amazing jobs, but typically it's, service industry sort of wages. If the rents are $500, $600, $700 a week, it's difficult for a young person to be able to afford those rents and outgoings. So that's one of our biggest challenges, is affordable accommodation for our youth and our workers of the future, I believe. And the other thing we have, because for the Mackay Isaacs, it's very easy to just say, I'm just going to head out and earn big bucks out over the range,
Yeah.
So they're the competing forces for us when it comes to tourism development. But on the positives, I was out at the Wake House with Amanda about a month ago, and she introduced me to two young people that had just started working that day, a young guy and a young girl. They'd been in Australia for 3 weeks, two young British travellers. And last Friday night I was out there having a couple of drinks, and lo and behold, they're still there. They're a month in.
Yeah.
They're enjoying it. They're loving it. They've now found somewhere to live. Amanda was helping them out, and they're enjoying their time here. And they're helping that business now return to more acceptable staffing levels, if you like, more normal staffing levels.
Yeah.
And so I think we don't only rely on the international backpackers to spend bucks, we rely on them to work in our businesses, and that helps with our recovery. And I think we know they help with agriculture, but you'll also see them in hospitality, food and beverage.
Yeah.
So is that something else,
yeah.
another opportunity that people can be, when it comes to marketing their tourism business, it might be that it's not just marketing to potential visitors, but they could also be marketing for staff to come for working holidays, etc. Like opens up a different avenue for their marketing.
Just another little bit of one of the things we did with our sailing business, identified pretty quickly that at any point in time about 20% of our workforce was internationals.
Yeah.
And we really wanted them because we were carrying a lot of international visitors, and they help, young people, sexy people. They provide a vibe, to your tour. And we also operated a sailing school. So what we said was, if I could build a program where I could guarantee you work after you've done a program with us that you've actually paid for, this is what we did. We developed a program that we were selling through the UK and Europe where people would buy a learn to sail program with us.
Yeah.
That at the end of their program,
they
could then become our deckhands and hostesses of the future. And that's what happened. So they were paying for their own education.
Yeah.
And we were giving them a program, and we were getting a workforce that we now had trained to the level that we wanted them to be.
And it's a different revenue stream.
And it was a revenue stream versus a cost stream, which it had been in the past, because you were taking a risk on taking people on that may never not make it.
And training them and not knowing how it's going to go.
Yeah, so really successful.
A lot of thinking out of the box. I love it.
Yeah, and so people could do that here today.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm a farmer, I've got a business, how could I bring some workers in, and look at that as an opportunity to send them off on their gap year around Australia with some skills, but also help me fill a role.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess, outside of staffing, if for people diversifying their marketing, etc., are there any, channels or techniques or anything that you think that regional tourism businesses maybe aren't taking advantage of just yet? Like, is there anything new in tourism marketing that people should really be getting on board with?
Well, it's really interesting because just yesterday we had Tourism Events Queensland here in town doing some training, and also we had representatives from the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, and that's the edge that we need using technology. Tourism Queensland, we're talking of the best of experience program, but the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse is the central point where all information regarding tourism product is contained. And it's
like
really
a huge
important.
image and video library.
And also
content. I vaguely remember that from doing some project with Mackay Tourism years ago.
What happens is that if you're starting up a tourism product, what you can do is you and it's free at the moment, you apply through Tourism Events Queensland, and you get a login code, and you build your product profile on the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, and you upload photos and you upload videos, and then through a team of experts in Tourism Events Queensland, they'll look at it and make sure the information's written in the correct tense and structured properly. And once it's approved, that populates the Australian tourism website, australia.com. It populates queensland.com. It would then also populate our Mackay regional websites, as well as accessing a global network of agents and wholesalers who are pulling that data.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I recommend,
Absolutely, and it's free, man. Like, be able to jump on board with that. And again, it's that whole collaborative thing that we keep harking back to. If people are going to australia.com, queensland.com, mackayregion.com, etc., the more they see on there, the more active a place looks, the more inviting it is.
Yeah.
So the more people who can get on there and get their profiles on there, the more bulked out. That's not a very good term for that.
More credible, really.
Yeah, but you guys know, you're experts in social media and building websites and helping with strategy. Well, I see it that way.
We try.
The thing is that content is king,
Yes.
and it still remains that way.
Yeah.
That if you keep your content refreshed, it's going to help with your SEO and your optimization. It's going to elevate you. Good imagery, good videos, and even now the analytics is looking at how reels are working and everything, and whether they're pulled
Video
in.
is the highest converting content you can do. I mean, it has been for a while, but there's a reason why social media platforms, for example, keep investing on developing other ways of doing video and how to make video easier for everyone to create and put out there.
Yeah.
Because video is high converting. You know, when it comes to sales and stuff, if you have a video ad versus any kind of static ad, video is just going to outperform most of the time.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you say that, because that was the advice that came through yesterday for our tourism industry, that high-res image is important, but a bit of video as the first hero image, the first frame will actually be a piece of video.
Yeah.
That's the
Much more
strongest selling point. It was interesting sitting down yesterday with some operators here from Mackay and seeing them go through that program. So that's really good. I think the other thing as we move forward is it's a really interesting thing, the tourism industry. I know years ago I tried to get rid of brochures. They're expensive.
They take time, you got to keep them
cost a lot of
updated.
money.
Get out of date.
They get out of date.
We
You
feel
find
you.
it comes back and you're like,
But
oh,
you need
we missed
something to
this.
hand over, like we said
People
before.
still love,
Yeah.
and I think it's the tactile nature. So obviously today, actually, my old business partners, what they've done with their brochures today is they've simplified it with nice imagery and a little bit of blurb and then a QR code, and that obviously then takes you to the video and the deeper dive into
And the
the
online
content.
booking, so it's getting them there
Correct.
faster.
And it's just that one quick, they scan the QR code and then everything's just a click away from what they
That's
need.
right.
But it comes from that tangible source of having something sitting there right in front of them.
And you can pull down from a threefold DL or even a full brochure to just a double-sided DL.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. That's what I was going to say to you. We're in a digital world, but still traditional.
We're tactile people, man.
And it's really interesting if we unpack that a bit further, because we saw a couple of years ago we lost our press.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now it's made a comeback. And, there you go.
People want to hold the paper in their hand, and it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think things just feel more, I don't know if, the word real.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
but
I don't know what that word is, but something just feels like it's more substance if you're holding it in your hand and having a look through it.
it's a reminder. I'm a list person, but also, when I travel, when I rock up at the airport or the hotel lobby, I'm grabbing brochures.
Yeah.
I'll
Same.
try and keep them as neat as possible so they can probably put them back for the ones that don't use.
Same.
But I'm like, I might like to do that. I might like to go there. And then I'm like, well, what do we have time to do? And you have to work it
Yeah,
out.
it's really interesting, because the ladies and the gents in our visitor information centres, either by the Blue Water Lagoon or down at Serena, they're telling us that people still love maps.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
was
mean?
just about to say that. I think that people are like, we want Google Maps because then I can have it on my nav and everything on my phone. And 100%, that's how I am too. But when I'm planning stuff out, if I'm somewhere where I don't know where anything is, I don't want to make a plan and then be like, oh, hold on, that's actually half an hour away, and all that kind of thing. So if I've got a map and I can go, okay, this is where that's where that is, that's where this is, and then, for example, have a QR code there that then takes me to that location on the map. Because the other thing is that when you're in an unfamiliar place, sometimes things can have similar names, etc. So when people type stuff into Google, they might go to their first result and so they go on Google Maps and it's not actually the right place.
Well, I've heard of situations where there's a Melbourne, obviously, in Victoria, Australia, and there's a Melbourne in Canada, and people have booked flights to the wrong destination, so maybe...
There's a Mackay in the US as well, Mackay, Idaho,
But here's
Can you imagine doing that?
Here's the thing, it just shows you that it's not one-dimensional.
No.
And while we are so reliant on the digital world, and we're getting such valuable insights through all the analytical engines.
The
that are
data is
given to
amazing.
us.
Yeah,
we're currently working on another data set at the moment where we've got for want of a better term, a panel where we can geo-fence an area and it's giving us the data via the phone network on how many visitors were at that location on that date.
Wow.
And it's breaking it up via whether they're international, intrastate or interstate. And we've got
all the data
access.
that's available on us.
Big brother.
And it's true, Big Brother's here, let's face it.
Yeah.
And
From a marketing perspective, though, very useful.
Yeah, and while we don't have it, we use separate monitors for monitoring forward activity. This is real, so I can go and look at an event that we conducted this year, like say the Mackay Beach horse races, and run the geo-fence around that.
And say how many were local and how many were international.
And then it takes a couple of days for all the data to populate on that location, but then run the map on same weekend 2 years ago and see how many people were there.
Yeah.
Versus the same weekend this year and see how many people were there. And it's real. You can see it.
And those kind of insights are just so valuable. It's like, okay, we were trying to expand our international tourism. Okay, we're up 20% there in international visitors, like all that kind of stuff. Like data, when it's just numbers and everything, I think people can get turned off by statistics and analytics and everything. But it's when it's the insights that you get from the numbers. It's what they help you to infer, so that then when you're taking your next steps, you're like, okay, cool, this strategy is working, I'm on the right track. Or
I need to tweak these marketing activities.
Is it working? I need to review this. And that's, that's what digital allows us to do.
And one of the things, it's really interesting because this discussion about digital versus paper, very early in the piece, 20 odd years ago, because with our visitors, we implemented a piece of paper where I wanted to find out everything about them, how long you were travelling in Australia, whether you're heading north or south, who you travelled with via car, Greyhound bus, by plane, etc., etc. We built up such a huge database of knowledge about our customers. I even knew...
That is invaluable. That's such an asset for a company.
Dietary requirements. Now, maybe that was a little low, as in too fine a detail, but what it really allowed me to do as we move forward with our targeted marketing, when I realised that X number of our customers were coming via motorhomes, I then said, right, I'm going to go and talk to the motorhome companies and see if we can do some bundling and packaging with them. And before you know it, my brochures are in their glove boxes. And then we advanced further with our wholesalers where when they hired out the motorhome and they sold, say, a 14-day hire of the motorhome, they also sold an open-dated voucher to one of my tours.
Yeah.
And then the customer was on the road. They'd ring a few days before, hey, I've got a voucher to one of your tours, right? So that's how you use data.
That's awesome.
And that's truly taking it to, so it's not just I'm collecting data and I'm putting it into a box and going to store it in the corner.
I have this lovely spreadsheet over here. We got the numbers.
So you're talking my language, and honestly, I just wish we could package that snippet and just blare it to everybody. Because honestly, like you said, it's collecting that data and then using it and how it can improve your business. That's the whole process right there. And it's like,
I think a lot of people do that starting point, but don't actually know how to leverage that data and review it analytically.
And I think too, it's like people don't always know what data they should be looking at or what they should be collecting, so they don't get started. And my opinion is always just start with something. At least start with something. And then if you go, oh, it would be good to know this, or I wonder why that's like that, that's your next data set. That's your next thing to add into your tracking.
And you know what? When you get really mature with it, you can look at seasonality and you can look at, you got your peaks and your troughs, and you look at that trough period to figure out how I'm going to fill that trough. And it's really interesting. A few years ago, we realised that the Chinese were coming here. And just for that window around the Chinese New Year. And in the Whitsundays at that point in time, we were pumping through January, and then we'd fall off at the end of January because everyone went back to work.
Yeah.
School holidays were over, and we had this, and we backfilled it with the Chinese New Year.
And that's the thing really too, it's like, if you go, okay, China is a potential market, rather than spending a lot of time and money on your marketing for all the time, it's like just focus on that period. And therefore, if you do that targeted marketing, you're going to get a better result than doing the scattergun approach.
That's exactly right. And then you looked across the year and you realised that the German market travelled at a different time to the French market, and then you'd see an influx from Canada. So you work these things and you work your programs through your distributors.
And that's your marketing calendar for the year, is
Yes.
tapping into each people
Yeah.
at the right time.
That's right. And then you think outside the box and say, well, okay, there's no markets for me. What do I do now? And I remember us going, let's go and hit the schools up. You know, and suddenly we were running school excursions in some of these quieter months, and we could offer them at a more discounted rate to help us build. So, yeah, data is still so important in our businesses. And I've got to say to you, one of the things that does frustrate me, Bud, is if we go and write a big strategic report and it sits on the shelf as a dust collector, I'm like, oh my God.
I know.
Let's not do
Strategy is important, but you've got to use it.
That's right.
Coming from someone that gets to write strategies.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, I think the future for us is over the next 3 to 5 years in this role, I just want to grab a handful of things that we can do.
Yeah.
Develop the partnership that everyone agrees that's what we can do, and then go forward. You know, go forward with like a prospectus. I think we were talking about before, say out in the Pioneer Valley, is there any opportunities for some new farm stays?
Yeah.
You know, maybe we could get a prospectus together, and then we could go out to the community and say, hey, anybody interested here? And one or two people who've got some blocks might say, yeah, actually, I'd be keen on that.
Yeah, and then grant funding, all different avenues.
Yeah, and a simple thing. Here's your prospectus. I want a 1-bedroom cabin, lock, stock, barrel, job done. It's $150,000.
Yeah.
Or if you want this model, it's $170,000. But we'll help you. And you know, we're already working through the planning processes, the approvals, the finance. You know, got some finances
working together to get it actually up and happening.
Got a few companies that can provide the cabins with alternate plans, etc. And then the marketing comes in, you know, and this is where, as an RTO, Regional Tourism Organisation, we come in and help.
Yeah.
And then we say, right, in 3 years' time, we're going to be marketing you to the world. And, you know.
So if I was a tourism operator here in Mackay and I probably wasn't in contact with Mackay Isaac Tourism and needed some inspiration and some assistance in growing and marketing activities, where would you recommend they start?
For a start, I'd come to
us.
Yeah.
That would be number one.
And Andrea's our development manager, business development manager, and we can start, as I said, with the basics, 101, and we can help you with some advice around who to talk to, and even just point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
And indeed, just 2 days ago, I had a man who's building a boat, a new 50-foot catamaran, and it's 2 years before construction will be complete. But, you know, we had a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to a couple of years us having a new product, and we will certainly help him through the marketing. And as he said, I'm a great sailor. I've got no idea about marketing.
Yeah.
And quite often that's the case. So we can help join the dots there. And, so membership of Mackay Isaac Tourism's something, and of course there's other benefits. You know, the networking nights where you get together with other people, like-minded people, share stories, learn.
You guys do workshops and training
Yeah,
sometimes.
well, that's right.
Here
And
as
that's
well.
just yesterday, the training on the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. So that type of program, and then there's mentoring programs as well.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I
And
didn't know
interestingly enough, I've just come from a meeting with Tourism Events Queensland where they run mentoring programs. So that's one-on-one.
Yeah.
But
Mentoring is so important, man. It can help you fast track things and put things in place that you didn't even know that you needed and stuff. Help avoid mistakes. That's fantastic. I didn't know that they did that.
Yeah. So
you don't even have to have your product fully ready to go. Here, help me sell it. You can be, I've got this idea.
I've started on. Where do I go to next? How do I make sure I don't waste my time doing this?
Yeah, and there's ongoing opportunities. And even next year, we've got the Australian Tourism Exchange, which will be held on the Gold Coast. I hope to be able to take 1 or 2 products with us just to introduce them, and they start to see that, wow, this, as I said, fishing in the ocean compared to fishing in the basket, or in the bucket. Yeah.
So just to wrap up, I just wanted to get your thoughts on something that we've kind of spoken about a fair bit, is that, and we did touch on this at the start as well, is like tourism is not just about tourism businesses, and therefore tourism marketing is not just for those businesses. Tourism marketing is really for the community as well. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, like how you feel about it.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure whether, I think everybody is aware that they're in tourism.
Yeah.
And
That's what I mean. Like, everybody's in the business of tourism, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because if you drive down Nebo Road and you're not from here, and you stop at a service station and you buy fuel, and let's face it, today you may spend well in excess of $100 filling your fuel tank. You're in tourism because you just took some dollars out of somebody's pocket that doesn't live in this area. And so it's really important that you smile and you do think about it. And one of the things I would say to you, this is something that I think about. You know, you see a motorhome and you're following it and it's annoying you because it's driving slow and doesn't know where it's going.
No, I would never feel that way.
And they're a bit lost. And before you know it, the frustrated Aussie's on the horn.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, no. If these people are in a motorhome and it's branded like Brits or Maui or Apollo Motorhomes or Travellers Autobahn, give them a break. You know, and they're likely here trying to find somewhere or they're not quite sure where they're heading.
Yeah, I've been the other person. I've been the person driving the motorhome going, I'm on holidays. I can do 10Ks under because I don't know what I'm driving right now. I'm still getting used to this and I don't know where I'm going.
Whereas I'm the person streaming around you at 150 going, wee!
Yeah, so I think, as I said, you think about that. We can all be in tourism and restaurants, obviously accommodation, but then there's all the service providers. Yeah. You know, and whether you're working in the laundromat that's washing the sheets or whether you know, for that matter, you're out on the farm growing the tomatoes or the
local produce, which is the experience that people come here to have at restaurants, is the farm to plate experience and everything.
Yeah.
We talk about that supply chain for the mines and stuff all the time and how we need to be working on that. But I think that, you know, the supply chain for tourism is something that needs a lot of focus as well.
But we're all ambassadors. Like if we've got family coming to the area for holiday seasons and stuff like that, you're like, oh, we're going to do this and we can go visit here and we'll do a sugar shed tour and we'll go up the valley and see a platypus. Like there's all these things you can do. Or what I hear so often, and it frustrates the heck out of me, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way, is, oh, there's nothing going on in Mackay, there's nothing to do. I was like, that's fine. How about you move to a capital city? This isn't the place for you.
Well,
and that's it. My mum always said only boring people are bored. Like if you don't think that they're... I know, it's very annoying as a kid, but it's so true though. Because like if you can't find something interesting to do here, there's not something wrong with here. Trust me, there is something, you're just not trying.
Correct. Correct. So anyway, I think the story for tourism is a story of opportunity.
Yeah.
And as I said, the opportunity will create jobs, it creates social outcomes, and when it comes to the environment, I think it helps us, you know, we're going to go forward and the tourism industry will be the eyes on our parks into the future.
That's awesome.
And I just want to see people joining an industry that's fun.
Yeah.
It's like marketing, man. Like tourism, same thing. It's people enjoying themselves. You get to do the fun, creative stuff. Like who doesn't want to be a part of that?
Exactly. And who knows, it can lead you on a global experience. And before we go, I just want to give you one example.
Go for it.
In the Whitsundays on our yachts, we used to employ young Aussies also, put them through and they'd become a deckhand and then they'd get to the next level and after 2 or 3 years they'd become a skipper. Well, guess what? Then you're ready to go to the world.
Yeah.
And many of the young people we brought up ended up on white boats, super yachts, sailing the Med. And there's one lady, her name's Trish, who I shared a unit with 20 years ago, who's now the master of a super yacht. She would be in her mid to late 40s now, the master of a super yacht for an Arab sheikh.
Oh,
so
my
multi-billion $1 million yacht.
Just dream
and
life situation.
And she's the skipper of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, there's these amazing stories of success. And last time I heard from her, she was at the Formula One in Monaco. You know, and I'm like,
such a high life. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah. So it just shows you a young Aussie girl, you know, can take on the world as well as a young Aussie guy. And I think tourism creates an opportunity where you can go and be whatever you want to be.
Absolutely, that's fantastic.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Your passion and excitement for not just tourism and marketing, but for our region is so infectious.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that Mackay Isaac Tourism have you on board and that you came in to meet with us today. Thank you so much, Al.
Yeah, and thanks for your time. And the message is onwards and upwards.
Fantastic.
So let's go onwards and upwards, girls.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming in.
All right,
Thank you.
We'll see you, hey.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Marketing and Margaritas. Find more free marketing tips, tricks and laughs at rebelnation.com.au.